Welcome to Learning Life Skills Together. This is our weekly community Zoom meeting where our guests help us to go deeper into the 4 life skills and open up a huge array of chances to practice them. Hello, everyone. So this is Learning Life Skills Together weekly streaming and podcast. This is number 93, and I have with me Pastor Michael Meadows from the Presbyterian Church of Kennett Square. And so Pastor Michael and I are going to talk about the concept of belonging, a really important skill and a really important factor in our lives and our kids' lives and the lives of the kids that we care for and about. So before we get into this conversation, as always, let's bring ourselves into a place and a time, which is now, where we could listen and really take this in. So I invite you now to just get in touch with your body in this moment. Maybe you're sitting down. Maybe you're in a car. Maybe you're in a chair. Maybe you're snoozing on the couch and just listening in. Maybe you're standing up. In all of those postures, you could feel how gravity is holding your body. Because that much is true. That much we know. That we are being held here. We find balance. And maybe if we're sitting down or lying down, we find balance by letting go, by allowing ourselves to be held just the way we are. So maybe just feeling that fact that we are right here, right now, and that we're being held and upheld. You might even notice that as you're being held, you are breathing. And the breath comes into the body and the breath goes out. And we don't have to think about that. We are supplied with oxygen. We are supplied with what we need in this moment. We're held and we're supplied. Maybe that can be something that's a little more real for you right now. And you can allow it to be the way you are. Just here. Just in the place where you are. In the moment that we're all in right now. And maybe you take a deeper breath in through your nose and let it out through your mouth. And if you've closed your eyes for this, you could open them. Otherwise, you might notice just here you are, ready perhaps to hear some good talk and some good talk about a really important idea, a really important concept, a really important way for our kids to feel, and frankly, for us to feel as well. So we're starting at Learning Life Skills Together, a bit of a series across our weekly Zoom meetings here to feature faith leaders from around the county of Chester, around Chester County. I better say it that way. So, faith leaders around Chester County and their experiences of this idea of connection and belonging. And so remember, the skill is connection. The skill is being able to effectively communicate ourselves, our needs, our wants, our capacity to help others. To be able to say and do these things is a huge skill. It's kind of the culminating skill, the one that brings the other skills together. So paying attention to what matters to us outside and inside, balancing our emotions, being able to find balance when we're thrown off, which we often are these days, and getting through tough times. How do we manage that? We need to do it sort of in ways that help and don't harm or hinder us or those around us, right? Life throws us real curveballs, and we have to learn to let them go by or learn when to swing, right? So there we are, ending with this concept of connecting with other people and having a sense of belonging to the community, to the human community at large, and to the small communities that really help to sustain us. And so, one thing that I've found, if you remember, I'm a professor in the public health department at Westchester University. And in public health, there have been studies for decades since at least the 1950s. I mean, these are the ones that I've read through. Our mental and physical health are better. This is irrefutable fact. This is science. When we are belonging, when we are members in attendance of a religious community, of a religious congregation. So that kind of belonging, and I want to extend that to the kind of belonging that we have, that when we go to be with those people, we go on a regular basis. And when we're not there, people notice and they call us and they say, "Are you okay?" Because that's, to me, one of the really big active pieces in that kind of belonging. And you don't get it by subscribing to somebody's YouTube channel, not even learning life skills together. You don't get it by, a membership. You get it by putting yourself there. You put your whole self in, right? As the hokey pokey says. So if we can, have that kind of belonging, we get those kinds of benefits of mental and physical health. And I have with me someone who gets to watch that and engage with that as a job, which is pretty awesome. So, Pastor Michael,
Yeah,
has anything bubbled up from what I've been saying that you'd like to um, say for us right now before maybe we um, try to steer the conversation?
sure. Yeah, that area of where you landed on of belonging. That, and I, of course, can only speak to it and its benefits in a Christian context, and but that belonging is fundamentally how we are designed as
Mm.
people as image bearers of God. We believe in the triune God who exists as one God in three persons, who exists in a state of perfect relationship. And
Mhm.
so in the fall, one of the things we see that is damaged is that relationship to one another, that the ideal, the design of being relating to other people and each other and to God in perfect relationship. That's what sin destroys and damages that relationship between one another, and that
Mm.
is God's ideal for his creation, that relationship, that belonging, that community are baked into the very design God has for his people and for his kingdom.
Yeah. And so this idea that we feel better and do better when we're in relationship with each other and, you know, because we're reaching out to everyone, I will say, sort of in that higher power idea, perhaps, that if we are connected in a bigger way, as well as just to a group of individuals or an individual, that there is a benefit to us physiologically, in our bodies and in our minds. I really, love the idea that you're bringing in, that relationship is what humans are. That is baked into us, I think you said.
It's John Donne's famous
Yes,
is so true, that we do not work as we weren't meant to be islands. We come
right.
to be a part of the continent is what he's
Yes, we no man
our
is.
invitation.
Yeah, exactly. And so I would put it with my sort of scholarly background the way Ken Gergen puts it in one of his books about relational behavior, is he says we are born into relationship.
Mhm.
There's like no argument about the fact
Right.
that it's baked into us. We're born into one. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's really, really, really a powerful idea. So let's bring ourselves from the transcendent, maybe down into the
Imminent.
in the imminent, into the walking around in the world, a part
Yeah.
of this. So, when I'm describing, I hope, that kind of relationship that is belonging, that where it's deeper than the kinds of relationships that are so much on offer. And I wonder if you have a perspective on that. I mean, I'm talking about the human relationships in the community. Because, you go places, you meet people, sometimes you really feel a connection, and sometimes it's not happening. And I think that we all want our kids to be able to live inside those connections,
Mhm.
to have that sense. So I'm kind of wondering how you view that and how you see that playing out, because you're sort of the the pastor of a congregation. So people who come together to belong, to feel
Yeah. I think one of the things that often leads to those deeper relationships where we can truly know what it means to belong, to be seen, to be recognized, to be a part. Um, One of the elements I believe that's always there when we belong is the element of vulnerability, that we cannot have deep meaningful relationships without an element of vulnerability. And to some degree, every person will always have some cards close to their chest. It is hard to break down all of our walls and our barriers that we put up. And
Mm,
um, one of the things that as Jesus came to restore us into a right relationship with God because we were, estranged. We estranged ourselves from Him as we rebelled from Him. As Jesus comes and is the one who restores that right relationship with God, He also restores the relationship that we have with one another and allows us to truly exist in a relationship with one another that's not simply built upon um, a quid pro quo arrangement, that we can have
mhm,
a relationship that goes beyond that and that reaches deeper, and that was very much dependent on in terms of practical things that we can do on are we willing, how vulnerable are we willing to be? And that can be a really difficult question when we've walked through a lot of relationships where we've tried that, we've been vulnerable, and then we've been hurt for
yeah.
all sorts of reasons. And that can cause us to want to put up more and more walls and more barriers because we think it's protecting ourselves. But in reality, it's preventing us from living in the way that we were designed to live. Um, it's preventing us from living truly deeply in relationship with one another.
Mm, yeah, yeah. And so there's something about, our the faces we put on, the masks that we put on that don't allow us to be vulnerable, that is self-protecting, um, that when we do let those things down, it's not the way we think it's going to be. We're not
Mm.
met in the way we think we're going to be met. That's really, one thing that's of interest to me a lot. And as an older person, I think that might be it, is just that one actually becomes more vulnerable, with aging, and there's more going on, and maybe some of us become a little more willing to let those things down. And as I say, I find it surprising that, oh, actually, people don't hold that against me. They care about it. They care about me. They, want to help. They want to do something. They want to, you know, comfort me or whatever when something is going on like that. So it's an interesting thing, and it has to do with our feelings about around being safe. So much of belonging is, do I feel safe enough to maybe, you know, let that mask down a little bit and start to be met by those things that are really, I don't know. Maybe you have a perspective on this too. It feels to me like when we're in when we're in that kind of, I don't know. Do you want to say that's a proper relationship, when I feel safe with you and you feel safe with me? That that I can say what I need to say and you can say what you need to say, or is that just skillful? I'm not sure.
Yeah, and there doesn't have to be a reason why it can't be both. How
Well,
that
yes, it is. There is a skill to it. There is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I think one of the things um, that the gospel does is as we put our faith in Christ to be our rescuer, then we're putting all of our hope, all of our trust in his ability, in his power, and his work to do that. And we're taking away that, we're taking that out of ourselves and placing that in Christ. And when we do that, we place our security in something outside of ourselves. And we're not very good naturally at taking our security, the thing we hold on to with a death
Yeah.
grip, and giving it away. And
Yeah.
and so we do that by faith as God calls us to do that. And one of the effects that happens from that is that we slowly we begin to see that all of the things we hold on to for self-protection, for self-preservation, they don't matter as much when we see that our protection is no longer in ourself. It's in Christ. So all of the things that we cling to, and hold on to protect, for the Christian whose faith is in Christ, those things that we're trying to hold on to matter less and less. And I think that's what allows people to take that mask down and to be willing to be seen. Because if we trust that Christ will carry us in all of our faults, in everything, and we can lower that mask, then we can, for the first time, be comfortable truly being seen, because we know that we won't be seen and then rejected and thrown out. But if we're
Yeah.
truly seen, uh, that that the God who truly sees us has also chosen to come down to us, and so he's not going to turn us away. And that feeling of being fully known, completely vulnerable and truly seen, I think is the only thing that can allow us to get rid of those masks.
Mm. Yeah. So I'm thinking of this in that sense of belonging, in that sense of community. And so when that is something that everyone is, shall we say, working on, aspiring to, that maybe that's something that is, that thing that we're not, um, that's not defined very well in these scientific studies, is that there's an aspiration to be not so protective of oneself, to be open to others, and that there's some sense of increasing safety in that. Just keep coming back to that
Mm.
when I feel safe, I can communicate better. When I feel safe, my body is less tense. I mean, as I say, sort of bringing it all the way back to, the ground that we walk on, the walking around in the world community. When people are working on that and working on that together, that's got to have a different feeling than, you know, a group of strangers or a group of people who, what's the word I want, who are competing with each other, whether it's
Mhm.
business or whatever. And I don't want to taint sports, because I think sometimes sports works in the other way. But
Yep.
as
Paul will
much,
even use Olympic sports metaphors in his.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
preaching through the book of Philippians right
yeah,
now, and
yeah.
it's
I
got lots
do
of those
believe that
metaphors.
St. Paul used those from time to time, sports metaphors. So yeah, so could you talk a little bit about now living inside a community that's, really dedicated to making each other feel more able to be who they are, and what that means to, first of all, us, but us as parents and carers.
Yeah.
Wow, I really hit the jackpot on that one. I
Yeah, yeah, the
had
fireworks are
fireworks in a
going off.
while.
Um,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. Yeah, and so to parents, so I think the helpful thing to see is to live and this is stolen. It's not mine, and I couldn't tell you who I stole it from. It's been stolen so many times. But to live from an identity forward. And so when we ourselves see, or when we live to help our children or those who we're giving care to see that first and foremost, they are a person made by God in his image, for the purpose of glorifying him and enjoying him for forever. Um, then all of the other things, all of our aspirations, all of our fears, all of our worries and desires can they go out, when properly ordered, go out being rooted in that reality, the reality of who we are. And if that reality is assured to us, that we feel that security in knowing we are his and he will not lose us, then that it changes the way that we live. It allows us to have those relationships where they don't have to be even, where it allows us to have relationships that are can even be straining, that require a whole lot more of us pouring in than we are getting
Yeah.
out in return, because we're not living for that desire of self-preservation, making sure that we're okay. Because if that's at the core of our identity, that that we're okay, it's going to be okay because the God who holds us is stronger than all things, then it frees us from so much worry and anxiety of spending our lives trying
Mm,
to fill life with enough stuff to then say this is enough, I've got it all. And it frees us to live for other people, and it frees us to live, as Paul would say, as living sacrifices for God's kingdom. Because we are not not living out of the need and the desire to make ourselves be enough, but where our starting point is, beloved child of God. How do you live forward from that?
yeah. Yeah. And so it does, map to the skills that we're talking about. And since we're talking about, yes, there is a way in which you can see these things in that big picture, in the transcendent picture, but they also are things that we learn to do and learn to do better. And so our noticing ourselves and how we're feeling in the moment and being able to work with that and being able to, I think we both now said it, to get out of ourselves and be with the other and do for the other as a way of getting through our own pain, our own difficulty, that we have moment by moment, or over time, or however that works out, so that as we get out of ourselves and stop living for the little me and start living for that one that, as you say, is the image of God. That there's an ease that comes in. And I mean, it's so obvious to us, and we spend so little time acting on it, is that when we meet people and talk to people and we're easy with them, or we meet somebody who's easy with us, that we feel safer, we feel accepted, we feel like we can be ourselves. And that is the basis of that deeper relationship that we're trying to talk about. That means belonging and not just tolerating, maybe. I don't know. I just came up with that. So maybe I want to think about that a little bit. But, I think a lot of negotiations in the walking around world are more those of toleration and acceptance. And so if we can live a life that's dedicated to the kind of acceptance that you're talking about, that that would be a model for, well, my kid anyway. It frankly is something that I have tried to pass on, and she's 42 years old, and people feel very comfortable with her.
Go
So
ahead.
I want to
Yeah.
say that, and I hope she doesn't hear this.
Ours are 4 and 1 right now, so we're
Yeah,
yeah,
you're putting in the work.
that we're trying to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's important. I think it's important to understand that it comes from us and it comes from the work that we do. Boy, Zoom is really picking up on every fucking thing today. So, I mean, I will definitely give a thumbs up to, we do need to do the work. We do need to keep brushing up our own skills so that we can share them with our kids, which doesn't mean sitting them down and saying, this is how you do this. It means, first of all, doing it, and first of all, doing it with them. So being that kind of person who, you know, says yes to, being with that child in their pain, in what they're going through, and opening ourselves up is really, really important, I think. So
Yeah, a shared walk with
shared,
our children or those that we're caring for means just being a presence means is often more than we could ever do through what we're teaching
yeah,
and we're modeling
yeah,
things. But some of the things in that, I mean, as you mentioned, what are the practical things we can do when the waves of life beat back and forth against us, and having having a people to walk alongside you is one of the most important things we can have in that. And so for our children, for those that we're caring for, them knowing that things things aren't always going to be happy. There will be moments where we're sad, we're upset, where real tragedy happens, and preparing them to know that
yeah,
even in those moments, those dark moments, you have a community who is here, who loves you, who is going to walk with you. And from the Christian standpoint, I mean, we we believe we are never alone, that
yeah,
we of course have the community of the body of Christ to sustain us and help preserve us through all things, but we also have Christ himself by his spirit to walk with us in every part of life. And so one thing we are trying to teach our 4-year-old now is that when you're angry, when you have real reason to be upset and you're sad, even in those moments, yes, you can come to mom and dad, and we will be there to walk through them with you. And Jesus is there with you, who he does not stop caring for you when things go wrong, and in those difficult moments, that you always have someone to turn to.
yeah. So I mean, this is kind of a perfect set of layers here, because we start out the learning life skills together with this paying attention to what's happening with us and inside us, and the thing that we offer, the activity that we offer is walking with our child.
Hmm.
Literally just taking them by the hand and going for a walk down the street, turning around and coming back. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It means something and it changes how we are in our bodies. I mean, we know that. It changes how our mind is running. When sometimes when we're feeling confused, flustered, whatever, we say, I need to take a walk. And we walk for 2 minutes down the hall. If you're in a building like yours, you just walk down the hall, you walk back, and there's a reset for and that, you know, is available all the time. And it is a metaphor for the kinds of walks that we're talking about, the kind of walk with another person who cares, with our community who cares, to which we belong, I want to say again, and our relationship to the transcendent you know, that yes, we are walking with, under, through, however, we might conceive it. There it is. That very basic human way of being and of caring for ourselves, sorting ourselves out. Let's take a walk, you know. So here we are. I think we've actually wrapped ourselves up, Pastor
Sounds good.
Michael. But I want to ask you the question that I ask everyone at the end of this, and that is, do you have a watchword for us? Do you have it could be more than one word, but sometimes there's just something that crystallizes. So if it's a phrase, if it's a sentence, if it's, as I say, a watchword that we can just keep in our minds after this conversation, what would that be?
Yeah. So rest in Christ is one that a phrase that I often go back to and want people to know. You could also say walk with Christ, and those two things aren't actually different concepts, but
Yeah, yeah,
one and the same. To walk with
I
Him
hear
is
you.
to rest in Him and to trust in Him, that in those moments where life is too much, there is a sure and steady anchor, and that we can rest in, and that's where we can find balance and live in the way that we were intended, is to do so resting in Him.
Yeah. In relationship. There we
Yeah,
go. Belonging. Okay, thank you so much. This was great.
it's a
And
pleasure.